Well, there are only 49 days left until the first votes are cast. Can you believe that? 49 days left until the first votes are cast in the U.S. election, and things are not looking good for Democrats and their cognitively impaired, child-sniffing leader, Joe Biden. And the Democrats, by the way, they know this. They're fully aware of this. Well, what they'll say publicly is entirely different, though. But over the past few weeks, there's been a quiet campaign among former Obama strategists to find a replacement plan for Uncle Joe Biden in 2024. Yes, ditch Biden off the Democratic ticket, but not throw him under the bus, of course, because that would be cruel, right? We don't want to do that. He's an old man, after all. You don't want to throw him under a bus. Instead, make it look like it's his decision to quit, to retire, to hand the reins of the presidency over to somebody else. We'll get to more on that part of the story in a second here, because there's logistics to all of this that I find very fascinating. But right now, most Democrats will say publicly that Biden is their guy, that they say this because they have to, right? He's the standard bearer of their party. They have to say this. But now we have enough private messages to the press and rumblings to confirm that they are actively shitting their pants and trying to find a replacement plan, a plan B for President Biden. The president is senile. His cognitive ability is mostly gone. He can't walk up steps. He's an embarrassment on the world stage. And I'm not just saying that because I think he's a warmonger and I think he's a terrible president. I would be saying this about any president who was in this ability right now. The leader of the free world is this guy. He's not running the country. So who is running the country right now? Because he's not. He's a meatbag that is just propped up there right now while other people in the deep state are running things. But they can only put on this charade for so long, right? And they're running out of time very, very quickly right now. We've all seen him just wandering off stages. Like, look at these videos here. He's just wandering off stages and speeches. He can't finish sentences. It's unbelievable. He doesn't know where he is. Former White House doctor Ronnie Jackson, who served 3 presidents, says that Biden's brain capacity is declining rapidly. Watch.
How fast does this decline happen based on your experience in the medical field?
Well, it's happening quickly, Sean. And like you said, I've taken care of actually 3 presidents. I was also there during the Bush administration, so I know firsthand what it takes to be the commander-in-chief and the head of state. It's a grueling job, both mentally and physically. This man can't do the job. He's proven to us every single day that he can't do the job. But this is going to get worse. I've been saying this since he was candidate, Joe Biden. I saw it early on, and like you said, I wasn't making a diagnosis, but I said something's going on here. This man's got cognitive issues related to his age. It's just continued to get worse. And I did this the other day. I went back and I looked at some stuff from 2 or 3 years ago when he was, or from over 3 years ago when he was running for office, and compared it to right now. And it's just unbelievable how much he's degenerated just during his time in office.
Yeah. It is amazing to watch those videos. His entire face has changed.
Right.
I mean, just in the few years when we were seeing him actually in debates with President Trump.
Yeah.
He was struggling big time. And you could see it in the videos. You could see his speech slurring. You could see all of that. And he's a totally different person now in these amount of 3 years.
Now, it's interesting that he says, I'm not making a diagnosis, because this was one of the things that we had hotly debated during the Trump administration when Democrats were screaming that it was Trump that was unfit for office, physically unfit and mentally unfit, because any doctor who would get out there and say, oh, this is what I know about him without an actual examination was subject to lawsuits. So what this doctor is saying now is like, this is not a diagnosis. This is what I know about what that job requires, because they have to be so careful about it. But when you juxtapose the silence around his unfitness with the screaming about Trump's fitness,
right?
It's disproportionate. It shows an utter lack of curiosity because of a bias.
Right, and it gets laughed down. Corinne Jean-Pierre laughing it down in the White House press briefing, like, come on, this guy, he's absolutely young as a whip right now. And don't even ask that question. How dare you?
Around all of us.
Yeah, he's running around. He can't even walk. How's he running circles around people? Like, give me a break. But you're right about that. I mean, the difference between the press reaction under Trump to Biden, Biden, same thing.
No, Obama actually absolutely got a double standard. They never mentioned that he was a smoker, a chain smoker. So they loved to talk about how Trump ate fast food all of the time, which he willingly admitted. But they allowed Obama this dirty secret of like 4 packs a day or whatever. I don't know exactly how much,
right.
but that was another,
right.
another double standard.
Yeah, he would go out and play basketball and then sneak a smoke. No one would talk about that. So you could say, well, yeah, but like, okay, he's old, he's falling down, he's cognitively declined. But look at John Fetterman, right? Here's a guy who just was elected to the United States Senate. They managed to elect a guy that couldn't speak without the help of a computer program. Yes, but that's the United States Senate. Much easier to sneak one past the goalie, if you know what I mean. In a Senate race, it's quiet, not a ton of voters. It's not on the national stage in the way that a presidency is. Could you imagine Biden, just imagine this for a moment, Biden doing a 2-hour debate against President Trump, and not right now, like in, what is today? Today's November 28th. Not today. I'm talking in the fall of next year when we have presidential debates. There'll be 3 of them televised. Could you imagine each of those 2 hours long and a town hall debate where the audience gets to ask questions and he wanders around? Can you imagine that? I can't imagine that.
Wrong.
They won't let it happen. They will not let that happen.
They're not going to let it happen.
Wrong.
So can you insulate him? There's a thing called, as the New York Post reported, that the Biden administration is now doing called Operation Bubble Wrap, where internally now they're trying to like bubble wrap the president to protect him from tripping, falling down. They're having him use the back staircase of Air Force One instead of the front staircase so he doesn't trip up the stairs. Like all of these things now, they're trying to insulate him. Would they insulate him from presidential debates? But these are part of the Presidential Debate Commission. Like they are on the clock. So how are you going to avoid these things? How are you going to say, no, we're not doing presidential debates? The American people will say absolutely not.
I wonder if they're trying to figure out if they can do some kind of AI like representation of him.
Get Fetterman's computer.
Can we just hologram him in? This is what he means to say.
They could clip up old sound bites of him from the 1970s and 1980s where he sounds like he's spot on, right? And then they could clip them together with him, how he looks today, like a Hollywood movie.
Right.
Like, Harrison Ford at the beginning of the Dial of Destiny, like, Indiana Jones.
Yeah. He'll come in like on Zoom and be like, I'm not a cat. He'll do the whole.
I am not a cat. I am not.
Well, I mean, just my opinion is like based on the kind of like what I cognitively see from both, potential candidates here is I think they should just get champions. They have like Kings used to do. They could just have their champions go out and debate each other so that neither of them have to be on stage talking. Because
trial by fire.
Like their second-hand person.
Like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Trial by combat.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, the Fetterman thing's a totally different animal. And then imagine these debates with President Biden, no way it's going to happen. But these guys live and die by these polls right now. So this is where Democrats are, and liberal news outlets are showing just how bad it is for Biden. Here's Politico. The polls just keep getting worse for Biden. Trump's vote share in national polls is higher than at any time in the past year. Here are those polls that Politico is referencing. And this is look at this, all of these different polls. A huge jump for President Trump. Rasmussen, Quinnipiac, Emerson, NBC News, Fox News polls, all across the gamut. You can see right now in head-to-head matchups against Donald Trump.
Wait,
who's who in this poll?
I know, I can't tell either. I think this is voter share.
Right.
So the share that Biden would get against Trump continues to diminish.
Exactly.
So we're looking at
a big shift.
We're looking at 2 different dates, not 2 different people.
Right, exactly,
Here.
exactly.
Well, I want to know
exactly. You're seeing the drop and decline of Biden, right?
And who in the heck are they polling that he's getting 46% in places? Like,
yeah, I mean,
those people.
Well, and of course, this is of registered Democrats. So you're seeing a huge shift now of Democrats saying, "We're out." That's massive. So not just within the party, like, oh, we might go over here to this other person. Or, no, we're out. We're done. Sorry. We're not even going to vote Democrat this time around. Some of these private messages have now gone public, the people that are privately talking in Democratic circles, namely Obama's lead campaign architect, David Axelrod, the guy who single-handedly, by the way, chose Biden as vice president instead of Hillary Clinton. So a lot, he was a Biden champion, a huge Biden supporter, now saying that they need to get him out of there. And he's really like leading this charge right now. Get him out of there. because of this new, like the polling information is just the crutch that they're leaning on right now, but it was always there. Now, David Axelrod took to Twitter a few weeks ago, essentially calling on Biden to step aside, had this big tweet thread that caused quite a bit of firestorm, where he's citing these polls. Very late to change horses, he points out. A lot will happen in the next year that no one can predict, but he's pointing out all of these polls. And he's like, the greatest concern is his biggest liability, the one that he can't change, which is his age. He can't change anything about it. He can't go in a time machine. All the adrenochrome in the world is not going to help him get anywhere. And so right now, he's like, oh, he's proud of his accomplishments. Trump is dangerous, et cetera, et cetera. Only Joe Biden can make this decision. If he continues to run, he will be the nominee of the Democratic Party. What he needs to decide is whether that is wise, whether it's in his best interest or the country's. Ouch. Internally, of course, the Biden administration is calling David Axelrod a prick. Those are his words. That's apparently President Biden's words, as cited by Maureen Dowd in the New York Times. And Maureen Dowd says that David Axelrod's not a prick. I've known him for many, many years, but that's what Biden's calling him for calling this out. And so what's really going on here? Corinne Jean-Pierre was asked specifically about the Axelrod question. Here's what she has to say.
You mentioned the president's excited to be celebrating his birthday, but I'm curious, David Axelrod told the New York Times, quote, Biden thinks he can cheat nature here, and it's really risky. A, what's the president's response to David Axelrod? Does he respect his opinion? Does he think he's right? But also, I mean, is there a real alarm happening behind the scenes that the president is simply too old to stake around for another 4 years?
No, there's no alarm happening behind the scenes. I can only speak behind the scenes here. There's no alarm happening behind the scenes, and I'm certainly not going to comment on everybody who has something to say.
I mean, David Axelrod
I didn't say that. Nowhere in my response to you that I said that. I said I'm just not going to comment on everyone that has a comment to say. They're going to speak for themselves. I'm going to speak for the president, and here what I'll say is, look. And also, it's just not my job. It's not my job to think through or to tell people what to think, right? Whether it's the American people out there, or a political analyst, or as your question is about David Axelrod. It's just not my place to speak to that.
Really, that's what you do every day. You tell us what to think. Right.
Well, she didn't start with let me be clear. She didn't start with let me be clear, and so I have no idea what she was talking about, because she should have started with no, let me be clear, and then rambled.
Right.
Yeah, then you'd be clear on it, and she didn't. That's a failure of her job.
Right.
David Axelrod, went back on doubled down on this, and I think, and he kind of tried to walk it back a little bit. Maybe he thought it was a little insensitive, but he says that Joe has a 50-50 chance or less of winning a second term. Let's be honest. There's no way he stands a 50-50 chance. It's far less than 50-50 chance right now. And a chorus of other Democrats are saying the same thing. He can't win. Democrat Dean Phillips, a longtime Biden supporter, says that he thinks anyone who thinks that Biden can win is delusional.
I think President Biden has done a spectacular job for our country, but it's not about the past. This is an election about the future. I will not sit still. I will not be quiet in the face of numbers that are so clearly saying that we're going to be facing an emergency next November.
So if you watch the liberal media, they've suddenly changed their tone dramatically. Our friend Tucker put together this montage, and I just want you to notice Dana Bash here at the beginning of this montage, almost as if she's going to cry reading this new poll information. Watch.
A stunning New York Times Siena poll shows that Donald Trump leading Joe Biden in Nevada, Georgia, Arizona, and Michigan.
The number of Americans who think that things are going badly in the country today has hit its high for the year. So you might expect any incumbent to be down as Biden is. But then look at these positive views of what people think will happen for them financially if Donald Trump wins. Way more voters think they'd be better off.
I guess the big news in the poll is that Biden is losing to Donald Trump because of huge losses among black voters and young voters.
The more diverse the swing state, the farther Mr. Biden was behind, and he led only in the whitest of 6.
Then let's look overseas. There's more voters, we find, who think that it's Trump that would keep the U.S. out of a war if he wins.
This is probably going to lead to a lot of Democrats increasing the chatter that Joe Biden should step aside and make room for another Democrat.
So just think about this for a second. Let's unpack that. He's lost massive amount of support among Black Americans. The very group that, of course, they have gone after to say that Trump's, these MAGA white supremacists.
Because they don't understand that not all Black people are the same.
Exactly. But they think they're going to vote as one party, as one group, as one unimind.
They do not think that they're the most racist party. They do not think that they are capable of diverse thought within any racial group.
Right. And so, wait a minute.
They have the market cornered on anyone they can call marginalized.
Wait a minute. We've been out here. I'm President Biden. I'm out here telling you how the greatest threat to America is white MAGA, white supremacists. Black people, don't you hear me, what I'm saying? You are facing major problems. Not that we defunded the police in your cities and crime is skyrocketed. Not that. It's that the MAGA white supremacists are your biggest threat, and you should vote Democrat because we'll keep them at bay.
And look,
we're
letting in your liberal cities, like, you want to rob stores, we're letting you, right? You want to
rob stores? Go ahead.
We think that's all okay. Like, we're letting, we're saying that that's racist if we enforce any crimes, so we don't do that.
Yeah.
We don't care about the sort of poor Black grandmothers who are terrorized in their own neighborhood. We only care about the people who are running out with guns. We don't think that anyone can see anything other than, hey, we let, bad things happen in cities so that you don't think it's racist. So then you must think as a group because we're racist.
Right. A unimind, David.
I was going to say, obviously, you guys have forgotten that if they don't vote Biden, they're not Black anyway.
Oh, that's right.
I mean, that's what Biden said.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't possibly be Black then if you don't vote for him.
Right.
So,
you must
young people
vote ad hominem.
Young people, people of color, fleeing the Democratic Party in a big way. And I love what he said in that little montage there about what president they think would keep them out of wars. Now, granted, President Trump was, equal in the amount of drone strikes and all of that, of course, but didn't start any new wars. I mean, this is the sad state of affairs in the United States where we're giving credit for presidents not starting a war. Right.
Well, yes, and it's been reported that Trump wanted to pull out of Somalia, and the military industrial complex just kind of told him, you wouldn't understand it, we have to stay there.
Yeah.
Right? He did orchestrate the withdrawal from Afghanistan. He did actually make attempts to withdraw overseas presence, but, a lot of that just wasn't, like, it was kept from him by most reporting. So, yes.
The Joint Chiefs of Staff basically told him you're not doing that. The military industrial complex was like, you're not doing that.
Right.
But he didn't start any new wars. But it's interesting, how did the Democrats fall so far and instead of being the party of peace or the party of war? And now voters are saying in all of these polls, we think that Republicans would keep us out of additional wars.
Right.
That's unbelievable. So this is where we sit right now. Now, the big question, of course, is who replaces Joe Biden? And there's a couple of technical details I just wanted to call to your attention here. Number one, October 15th was the Nevada deadline for filing. So if you're thinking of, like, as a Democrat, you're going to throw your hat into the ring, you need to have already filed to run in Nevada by October 15th. That ship has sailed. The next round of states that need to have you on the ballot and signed up and ready to go are coming up here in the next few weeks before the end of the year. So if there's a Democrat out there like Gavin Newsom who thinks he's going to throw his hat in the ring, he's already missed Nevada. There's no way, in my opinion, unless there's some sort of legal chicanery or trickery that's going to happen, that Gavin Newsom comes into this mix somehow, or somebody who's not already running would come in. Therefore, of course, all of the rumblings and discussion is handing the presidency over to Kamala Harris. She's already on the ticket. She's already filed to run for president. So she would then be handed the presidency and could run again in an election as president of the United States while President Biden steps down and resigns. So
that's literally the plot of Veep.
Yeah, right. We're living through it. I know there's so many things this could be the most important and craziest election we've ever had in the United States. And I think we're about to watch it unfold. There's no way that, I'll say it here. Mark this video. There's no way that if President Biden runs against Trump, President Biden wins legitimately.
Not in a fair election.
No way in hell that's going to happen. So they know this. What are they going to do? The only solution they have right now is to try to pivot fully, and they can't run on and David Axelrod said they can't run just on a platform of against Trump or the anti-Trump. David Axelrod specifically said Hillary tried that, took a shot at her. He said Hillary tried that and failed. They're not going to win doing that. So then they have to run on his record, which is going to be a total failure. The only solution is for them to put up Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Unless I'm wrong, let me know in the chat. I would love to know your thoughts on this in the comments below. If there's some other sort of legal chicanery or hurdle that can happen, but according to my sources, there's no way. They're not going to, Gavin Newsom is not going to give up Nevada, not going to give up certain states by not being on the ballot in those states. You're literally giving your opponent a huge advantage in electoral votes if you skip out on these states. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.